So on Monday, week of recording this, I took a whole bunch of personality tests, mostly because I hadn't done them in maybe 5 or so years. I took the Myers-Briggs, I took the Enneagram, I took the Rice Purity test. I took all kinds, and it was a lot of fun just chatting with everyone. I think what was most shocking to me, though, was I didn't have a very strong opinion or idea of what my Myers-Briggs would be, but I was really, really invested in the Enneagram. For those of you who are not familiar, the Enneagram is a personality test based on the way I see it, based on trauma, based on the wound that is currently dictating our coping strategies, etc. A lot of what the Enneagram touches on was what great need do you have? And what great thing do you fear? What thing are you avoiding? And between the two of those, it sort of assumes the kind of personality that thrives in that space, the kind of personality that exists well there. And again, I've always had like a middle to low opinion of the Myers-Briggs quiz. So seeing that I was an ENFP wasn't a great surprise or concern of mine. But seeing my Enneagram shift from a 1 to a 4 really surprised me. And it reminded me somewhat that people are not static. You may think that you have been the same person as you are right now, with the same perspective, same ideas, unless you've undergone some rapid and large shift in your life suddenly. Generally, we believe ourselves to be pretty consistent with ourselves in the past. Or at least we can't even remember how we were 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Often and really, we find ourselves in a state where we believe that we are who we are, and not only has that never changed, but it will never change. But we also have the capacity to look back at ourselves and find that cringe, right? When we look at ourselves and are embarrassed by our previous self, we think of that as not representing us. What that really is that dissonance between the person you became eventually and the person you are right now. What that really is you recognizing that you held different sensibilities, different opinions, different beliefs back in the day. And to a certain degree, the separation between this very developed idea of who you are right now and who you are then disgusts you. I think we have the tendency to think of ourselves as flanderized characters, like exaggerated, overly perfect versions of ourselves, or overly bad. Your internal self-image might just be pretty consistent. And if that consistency is consistently miserable or terrible, you might have also absorbed those into your personality. I know a lot of these are in jest, but I do scroll through Twitter, and I'm surprised by how many people sort of take on the labels of like stinky or stupid or idiot just lying down. How many people just absorb those? Maybe they're empowered by those. I don't want to assume that this is entirely, serving the purpose of hoarding the person. Like some people like being stinky, right? But I have to imagine at least some of those are people who are genuinely self-deprecating. How we look at ourselves aside, I was very surprised when my Enneagram switched since the last time I took it. The last time I took it was 2 years ago. I am very, very involved with the Enneagram because it is very consistent with my sort of mental purview. I know personality tests are archetypes in generalities and trajectories. They do not give you the key to understanding yourself or another person. Everyone has the capacity to quote-unquote break character because ultimately who we are in different circumstances is not the same. Even moment to moment, setting to setting, we might be different people, even if we consider ourselves the same person throughout. These are simply trajectories, simply archetypes, ideas that you fulfill. But I'd take my idea to be very, very personal. For those of you who don't know, Enneagram 1 refers to a person who fears being defective, being wrong, being unworthy. And the way that they combat that, their great desire, the way that they interface and interact with that trauma is by making themselves the most perfect thing they can be. I really identified with that because for a very long time I did have that issue that possibly I wouldn't be loved. I wouldn't be appreciated, wouldn't be cherished. And if I was perfect enough, if I was good enough, if I was this ironclad thing, you would cherish me. I think I went through a lot of growth these past 2 years, which is very nice. And that culminates in my having switched. Apparently, I have a new fear. The fear of the 4 is not that they're unworthy, but that they're not significant, that they are not noteworthy. And that's there's a different value judgment there, isn't there? There is the difference between seeing yourself as worthy of anything, of love, of being perceived as a tangible, decent human being. And the second one values importance, feelings of importance, feelings of grandeur, that they have no identity, no personality is what scares them, that they are ultimately personalityless. How many of you relate to the feeling of having scrubbed away all that was you in order to fit in, or in order to feel as though you are appropriate in a space? How many of you spent a long time trying to figure out what is correct, how you are meant to act, how you are meant to be in a space, and realize that the casualty of performing that was you? Because I'm not sure if you've realized that for yourself, or even if that is applicable, but that is applicable for me. I realize as I stop hyper-focusing on being the archetype that I need to be to fulfill a space in society, I become more worried about whether or not I, in and of myself, have anything left of me. If I hadn't just steamrolled all of it for the purpose of being tangible, of being touched, of being loved. How do we become lovable? The four's great desire, how they cope with that fear, how they perceive life differently, where they want to go, is they want to find themselves. They've in some way lost themselves, or otherwise feel as though they're gone. And they're looking for a means to rediscover that. Bogged down by so many rules, so many means to interact with the world, so many active ways we spent to become what we needed to be wherever we are. It is the great journey of self-discovery, which is what is left, or what is needed for a 4. And let's not get overly serious, right? A friend of mine uses tarot to tell them things that they already know, but they won't listen to themselves for. Sometimes it can be helpful to have direction from something that doesn't have that much credibility behind it, so you feel enabled to change. Ding, 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 10 minutes.